Hello and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Holly Wharton. I've been an entrepreneur since 1999, and I know firsthand how difficult it can be to build a business without the right mindset. This is a podcast for those of us who struggle with showing up in our business with confidence and authenticity, who resist taking big action because of fears and doubts, who know deep down that it's possible to create something bigger, and yet you're not. This podcast combines powerful strategies on how to upgrade your business mindset, along with practical business tips to grow your business more easily in a way that feels aligned. This podcast features solo shows with me and also interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world, including my monthly co-hosted episodes with Joe Casey. My goal is to help you grow your business more quickly and easily by transforming your mindset. For me, mindset work is a lifelong practice, and I want to help you make a habit out of mindset work. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, let's get into this week's episode. Hello, this is Holly Wharton, and I'm back with another co-hosted episode with the fabulous Joe Casey. Today we talk about integrity in business, and this is a topic that's been coming up for me a lot lately, which you may have noticed from my solo episode 224 on how to establish credibility and trust as an entrepreneur. Integrity is so important to me. Possibly because my first business really did not feel aligned for me in terms of integrity. And I really feel like this business has been an exercise in making up for that. So what are we going to talk about today? You're going to learn what integrity actually means and how it shows up in business. How to get clear on what acting from a place of integrity looks like for you. How overextending ourselves affect our business integrity. Why it's so important to make things right when we mess up. How getting support comes into play when we're building a business from a place of integrity. And this is really important, something you may not have thought of. What boundaries have to do with business integrity. And if you haven't listened to our episode on boundaries, that was 225, go and check that out because that was a mega episode that I really loved. And finally, why you've got to be constantly calibrating things in your business if you want to come from a place of integrity. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope you find it interesting and useful as always. And let me know what you think.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is Joe Casey and I'm here with Holly Wharton. We're here for our monthly bonus joint podcast. Hi, Holly. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
Yeah. Okay. It's been a weird few weeks on the internet. So we're recording this end of October and we've had the whole Me Too campaign or Me Too kind of movement that's been going on. There's been some other stuff that's been happening in Facebook groups and with some fairly high profile people that I'm connected with. So it's felt like quite a torrid few weeks, which is, I think, why we've decided to talk about the topic that we're going to talk about today, which is around integrity. And how to have integrity in your business and what we mean by that and some kind of guideposts around that. So yeah, have you got anything that you want to kind of say about the reasons behind why we've chosen this topic?
Well, same as what you've said. I mean, a lot of people have been talking about this lately. Natalie Sisson posted an article, a blog post from someone else had written in Medium, which we can include in the show notes, which I think was really interesting. And when I posted that to my Facebook group, lots of people were saying they'd already come across it. So it's like integrity is a topic that's people have been thinking about and talking about lately. And it's a topic that's very close to my home because in my first business, which I ran for 10 years with a business partner, I did not feel like I was in integrity. And it felt so awful. And I had ran that business for so many years with this business partner who was, our values were just not aligned. And it was so awful. And integrity is such an important thing to me that I think I have kind of vowed to be as impeccable as possible in this business because it's just so important to me. And I know how awful it feels to be out of integrity because of someone that you're working with.
Yeah, I it was probably one of the reasons why, you and I got on so well, but integrity is one of my kind of core beliefs, one of my kind of leading principles. And I have to say that, yeah, it feels like physically awful, not just emotionally. It's like, I feel like my whole system is out of whack if I'm not in integrity. And that's not to say, oh God, I'm just always in integrity. That's not at all. It just means that, it's important for me to strive to do that. And I do have I think quite a strong internal reaction when I'm not in integrity. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things that always surprises me continually, how sometimes people behave, not just on the internet, in life as well, but I suppose we spend so much of our time in this online world, and how integrity means different things to different people. But there are some people who just, I can't see how they can be in integrity with things. And I think with this theme that we've been having in our discussions of late about, new marketing, a new way of doing things, the fact that we're, sick of so many of the old ways of doing stuff, I think integrity really comes to the fore of the conversation, because it's about what sort of businesses do we want to be building, not just, I want a business that's going to be making money, but it's on what basis, at what cost, and how can we be building businesses that do have integrity, that aren't doing additional harm to people, that are building up more trust instead of kind of adding to what can sometimes feel like just one huge global shouting match around things. So I've just been over and Googled the definition of integrity, because I know my definition, but I wanted to kind of go and find what the dictionary says. So it says, the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. And the state of being whole and undivided.
Ooh, yes.
And I think that both of those apply when it comes to the work that we do, and it comes to the way that we show up in our businesses, in our communities, in our world as humans.
And as solopreneurs, it's just us. I mean, we may have a team, but integrity is all on us.
Yeah.
We can't hide behind someone else. It's not a big organization where there's so many other people at play. It's us. Like, it's up to us to run our businesses from a place of integrity or not, and anywhere in between on that spectrum.
Yes, absolutely. Because there's nobody else you can kind of go, I'm going to offload that. I'm going to offload the integrity bit to, my colleague or something like that. Or nothing I do really affects how this shows up for customers. It's like everything you do affects how this shows up for customers. So I think it's a juicy and a timely topic to dive into. So Holly, what does integrity mean to you? When you think of that word integrity, when you think of you in your business, what comes up for you? What's that mean for you?
It means that I'm acting in a way which is aligned with my values. I am being clear and coherent. When I say something, I follow through with it. I am clear about what I offer, what I can and cannot help people with, and I stick to that. I think it's all about transparency, and I think I'm a very transparent person. So being clear and transparent on these things is really, really important, because I think it makes the relationship really clear. I know I've used that word 7 times in the last sentence, but it's all about being clear.
Being clear. Okay, we get it. And
just being ethical and standing up for the things that I believe in terms of running a business and being an ethical business person.
So I think one of the things that makes this confusing for people sometimes is the fact that integrity and how integrity shows up for you in terms of the behavior and things will be different depending on the person. So what is in integrity for me may be slightly different for integrity to you, Holly, although actually in reality it probably isn't, because I think we're fairly similar. But someone else may have a very different approach to their business, but to them they're still in integrity with themselves. So I think it's important to have those things in mind, because that idea of, you know, something being whole, something undivided, I think it has to be from your personal set of morals and values. Mm-hmm. And that's where it gets very, very tricky when you're dealing with other humans.
Yeah.
Because I've seen the word being out of integrity thrown around a lot at people. But do you know what? I think Donald Trump probably is fully in integrity with himself.
Yeah, I think he lives by his values.
Yeah. He says what he means. Is it the same moral code that you operate from? Oh God, no. But so you need to have a level of self-awareness. Mm-hmm. I think a level of the ability and the willingness to look at your own stuff and to own your own stuff to be fully in integrity.
Mm. And to also see how your sense of integrity and your sense of values fits in with other people.
Yes.
Including, of course, the people that you're working with.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And I think that's why that word being clear is so important. Because if you are clear to people from the outset what your boundaries are, what's on offer, what's not on offer, then you are in integrity when you go back and maybe have to reaffirm those boundaries or remind people of that. Mm. Where I see people coming a cropper with boundaries work is when they haven't vocalized what those boundaries are, where they haven't been clear about what's on offer, what's not on offer, where they've maybe overpromised. Now, and that kind of whole thing of overpromising, I think very, very often you can read that as, oh, they were just trying to manipulate you or something like that. But I know that for many of us women, we overpromise with the best of intentions because we really want to do the thing. And I know that that's something that I have done in the not too distant past, and is something that I'm continually working on because I want to help people. I really want to help people. And part of being in integrity is sometimes taking a pause to say, have I actually got the time and the energy, and is it appropriate for me to do that? And sometimes I mess up on that, and I'll hold my hands up and say I mess up on that. But I think it's very clear. It's very important from the beginning to be clear on what are your capacities, what are you offering, what are you not offering. And this goes back to the conversations we've had about, offering guarantees and contracts and things like that. So.
Yeah. And also it's like when you when you read a sales page and you see this is for you if, this is not for you if. Like that's another way of kind of creating those guideposts so that the potential client can be like, oh yes, oh yeah, no.
And I know that when you are not feeling 100% confident, or you're feeling a bit desperate, but I will just take any client. I will just take any client going. Actually, even though you may be, I'll work with them. It doesn't matter how difficult they are. Or, I will just take them. Anyone, we go out onto the street and just hit people over the head and be my client. But that's not an integrity either.
No.
Because there are people you will do great work with, and there are people that will just be a terrible fit. You can't help everybody no matter how much you may want to. And so part of being in integrity is being able to identify who are the people I do great work with, who are the people I do really lousy work with. Or, I just...
And you can tell when you're on a sales call with someone.
Yeah, definitely. Even if, you are sometimes tempted to go, well, I'll give it a go. I don't know about you, but I know that whenever I've had a client who hasn't turned out to be a great fit and it hasn't got the result that either of us have wanted, I can kind of look back on those initial contacts and go, yeah, my gut told me that this wasn't going to be great.
Yeah, it's like listen. You can look back and identify the red flags that at the time you were like, oh, no, that's going to be okay.
Yeah, exactly. So you also said something about saying what you mean.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tell me a bit more about that.
So I think that goes back to the word that I keep saying, which is clarity. Mm-hmm. So it's when you have the sales conversation, when you're writing the sales page, you say exactly what you mean and you mean what you say. So you clearly express what it is that's included, what's not included, what you can help people with, what you can't help people with, it's about managing expectations and being really clear in exactly what it is that you're offering. And again, it's impossible with coaching to make guarantees and say, at the end of our 6-month program, you will have achieved this, and this. You can't, because you don't know what work the client's going to do. But you can say, here are some things that are possible for you. Here are some things that clients have gotten as a result of this work. Your results may vary, of course, but it's about being clear and managing the expectations for what it is that you're offering.
And I think when it comes to marketing, that's a tricky road to walk.
Yeah.
Because I can't remember which, there's a really rubbish film with, I think it's with Dudley Moore. It's like from the 80s or something. And he is an ad executive and something happens to him. I don't know. I can't remember what it is. And he finds it impossible to lie anymore. And I think it goes back to this idea that, all marketing is lying. But he does these really honest ads, and there's one of them for Volvo, which is, it's boxy and ugly, but it's safe.
Exactly. Like, you've got to make it appealing, but in a way that's really coherent and truthful.
Yeah. And so I work with clients a lot around their marketing, and it is this real tightrope sometimes to walk around. Well, how can I explain the possibilities of this without kind of saying it will totally change your life? And how can I do that in a way that, it's like a gauge. How do I gauge how much of the, imagine the possibilities is in there, and how much rah do I put in, and how much of the benefits or the potential benefits do I talk about, and how much do I, it's almost, if you're coming at it from a place of, you have to kind of be in the right mindset to be able to do that. I think, because there's a danger that we've all seen those sales pages, the ones that usually have the red writing with the yellow highlighting on. They kind of go, imagine losing 30 pounds in 21 days with never being hungry. It's almost like yelling at you.
And eating cake for every meal.
Yes, eating whatever you want. With the kind of temptation to go kind of the other end of that, I kind of go, I will work with you on this and this and this, and the results that you get will be 100% your own. It's like, nobody's going to buy that. So you have to find that middle ground that's going to be in integrity. And for me, the way that I help clients to work with that is to look at what are the benefits of the actions that you will work with them on. Mm-hmm. So, for example, a lot of coaches will just focus on their process, but it's then, well, what's the other end of that process?
Yeah.
So maybe
what's the purpose of doing the process?
Yeah, exactly. So maybe it's something like, I'll help you look at all the relationships that you have and work out where your boundaries or your fear of intimacy is affecting them, and come up with some strategies to resolve that. Mm-hmm. That's not the same as saying, I will help, everyone will love you by the end of this program. But it is about, I will, this will help improve your relationships by this, and this. You will have. So it's focusing on the tangible and the benefits of that, rather than, I think, just the kind of the most amazing benefits possible in the universe.
Right. So it's like not focusing on the benefits that your ideal client that is 100% turbocharged and action taking and perfect will get. It's being reasonable based on your experience with a variety of people.
Yeah. And it's also going back to that word that I know we use a lot, which is being human. So nobody talks in the way of everyone will love you. Imagine being the person in the room that everyone wants to talk to. So I hope this sounds okay with me shouting on the podcast. It is more about, you know, how you would have it as a conversation. So I'm going to teach you some tools that will help you to just build better, easier relationships with people. So that, you know, you're not going to feel really awkward in every social situation. You're going to have tools you can fall back on that will help you to start conversations and will help you to build relationships. That's a much more kind of conversational style of marketing message, I think.
Exactly. It's speaking like a human being and not like a, I don't know, auctioneer. Or a sales
things you see at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep.
Yes, infomercial. Yes.
So that's one thing in terms of marketing. What about, so one of the things that I know for me is about integrity is sometimes it's not always easy. Sometimes it's easier to say, oh yeah, I can totally do that for you. Yeah. Sometimes I have to say, no, I can't guarantee you that. Whether that
and you don't want to disappoint people.
No, because if you have a bit of a people pleaser thing in you, which an awful lot of us do, you want to say, yes, we could totally do that. And, I can absolutely help you with that. And I know that that's one of the things that I have to work quite hard to resist sometimes. And there have been times when I've maybe overextended myself and couldn't deliver to the standard I'd wanted to because I was so spent. I was so exhausted by the end of it. And that's a hard lesson to learn. So
it is. And conversely, though, I think some people will go the opposite way and hold themselves back because they're so afraid of overextending themselves because they've done it in the past.
Yes. So it's almost like you need to calibrate and recalibrate and be vigilant about it.
And that's a constant work because as your business grows, as you grow, as you change, as your business changes, you're constantly going to need to be calibrating because you're going to be offering different things, working with different kinds of people. So you've always got to be aware of this. I know you said this earlier, but it requires a tremendous amount of self-awareness to be calibrating to see where you are on the spectrum of integrity and how much you can handle and how you're managing things.
Yeah, totally. And also, I think making sure you have a reserve, because one of the things about running a business is you can pretty much guarantee that something will come up unexpected at regular intervals. So whether it be the client relationship that you thought was going brilliantly that suddenly kind of hits a bump in the road and you have to deal with it, or it's the unexpected bill that comes in, or it's the tech that doesn't work, or or it's finding yourself in the middle of a hurricane, as some of my clients did recently. Actually, I did for a day. We lost power for a few hours the other week. We did, yes. And I'm in the middle of quite mild north of England, but yeah, we did.
Tropical England.
Yeah. So having a reserve, one of the things that I've noticed in some of the fallout from some of the kind of unfortunate, unpleasant things that have happened in my kind of online communities of late is being able to stand back and look at people's behavior and think, they are not coming at this from a very resourced place, because if they were, I'm sure they wouldn't be behaving like this and responding like this. And, it's very easy to fire off an email when you're up to your limit of things that day. And one of my rules is sleep on it. Just look at it tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah, especially if it's something that's hitting me in quite an intense way.
Yeah. And if you feel yourself like wanting to lash out with that knee-jerk reaction, just stop.
Yeah.
Wait an hour, wait 2 hours, or sleep on it.
Yeah.
But give yourself some time to let it sink in and not just react to try to get that email out of your inbox or take a thing off your list.
Yeah. And it's not something that you're going to get perfect every time, But it's one of the things that I really try and work on consciously. And also having other people who can give you a perspective, a different perspective. Because when you're in the middle of something,
you can't see it.
No, absolutely not. And that's going back to one of our recurrent themes about, having people in your corner, having a mastermind, having fellow entrepreneurs that you don't have necessarily a business relationship with. Maybe it is a paid mastermind, maybe it is a paid coach, but also just fellow travelers, people who are in a similar situation, who get what it's like when you get that email, which feels catastrophic when you're first reading it. And then, they can give you the different perspective and help you get grounded about it and help you get to a place where you can respond from a resourced place, a place of integrity.
Yeah. So one of the things that you mentioned earlier were contracts.
Yes.
And I think that's a really clear and easy way to outline expectations. So how did you learn how to do contracts? I mean, I know my documents have really evolved over the years, but how did you, what do you include in your contracts? How did you learn how to make a contract that you feel really comfortable with and you feel represents the boundaries and guidelines of the relationship?
I think they do evolve. I learned a lot from some great mentors. When you get to work with great people, you also get to kind of think, what do they put in their contracts and their coaching agreement? And so there are the things that you can model. And I do say model. I don't say steal or copy, but is modeling. And then I think so there's the kind of the legal side of things, and I'm not a lawyer, so I don't attempt to do any of the legal type stuff. So I initially, paid for a kind of fairly boilerplate coaching agreement from a legal site a few years ago. And I possibly need to kind of get that reviewed because it has been a few years now. So I use that for the kind of the legal side of it. But then I also have quite a large section, which is a behavioural contract. So in terms of the way that I commit to showing up for you, the way that I expect you to show up as well. And that's things like you take responsibility for your feelings and for raising any concerns with me as and when they happen. Because there's nothing worse and also very little that can be done if somebody kind of saves up resentments or things that they weren't happy with right until the end.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't do anything with that now.
Yeah. And that goes back to clear communication. Like you have a problem, you communicate it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Things like owning your response to things. So that helps to not get into accusation mode. Yeah. And that, that goes the same for me too as the coach. So things like, we talk in, ideally we talk in, when you did that, I interpret that as. So rather than you made me feel, which is never very helpful. And this is something that I kind of do this kind of behavioral contracting when I'm running a group, when I'm doing in-person events, if it's kind of, long event when we're going to be talking feelings and doing some kind of tricky stuff. Because I think stuff like that is very important. And then I also do things like, what is my cancellation policy? What's my refund policy? Do I offer a trial period? No, I don't. Do I apply late fees? And these were all things that initially I was a bit like, I don't want to do any of that. That seems really harsh. But you get one or two clients who don't pay you that you learn really quickly because you're running a business. Yeah. Or, you get a client who takes forever to, is consistently late and you're having to spend time chasing them and reminding them and things like that. Then having something like, a fee that you can apply for late fees can potentially pay to hire somebody to go and do all that stuff for you. Yeah. Because you do get to the point of you have to be able to balance being able to be a good human showing up in your business, and it is a business.
Yeah, and, exactly. It's not just a friendly little thing.
And then I think one of the other things from a coaching perspective, and depending on, you listening to this, if you may have a different methodology and a different practice, but certainly from a coaching perspective, it's really important to have some clear boundaries around the nature of the relationship. Mm-hmm. So it's a professional relationship. It's a friendly professional relationship, but it's not a friendship.
Yeah.
And I also learned that the hard way, because I had an experience a few years ago where I had a case of transference, where somebody had decided that we were in this really intimate relationship and I was the only person that he could talk to about things. And I was like, yeah, of course, because you're hiring me and that's my job to listen to you. And now I think we have a real connection. And I was just like, dude, you know nothing about me, because this isn't a two-way conversation. But he'd got that very confused in his head. And fortunately, it happened when I was working in a workplace in an organization, and I had the kind of the HR backup and things like that, because it could, it did get quite kind of with things. But so I'm really clear about that. This isn't a friendship. So it's a friendly relationship. And there are clients that I've had who I've then become friends with afterwards, but there has to be a very distinct change in the relationship. Otherwise, you just end up with very one-sided friendship.
Yeah.
Well, you're basically just doing free coaching. And that's not great from a professional point of view. It's not great from a financial point of view. It's not great from a human point of view either. That's not a healthy relationship.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a really clear way to express that. As you told that story, it reminded me of years ago. I think I was in grad school. I was seeing a therapist. And I show up for a session one day and she says, "How are you?" And I go, "Oh, I'm fine. How are you?" And she looks at me and she says, "I ask the questions." And I was like, oh shit, I just was being polite. But like, that was her way of setting like a brick wall between us. That was her boundary. And ever since then, I've been terrified to be, well, I mean, I've grown out of it now, but for years I was terrified to have that kind of friendly side to a relationship like that. Like, I get that we're not friends, but can we just be polite? So I think I really like what you said about it being a friendly professional relationship. Like, you can ask each other how you're doing.
Yeah, but so I don't know if you've ever had that, but I've had occasions where I've hired somebody and they've spent half the session talking about themselves. It's like, oh, listen, it's my time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I can't think of that happening. Yeah.
So I know a lot of this comes back to boundaries, what you will do, what you won't do. Mm-hmm. I think there's then something about how do you handle the fuck-ups? Yes, yeah. Because they're going to happen, because, again, we're humans. And I think that's always a real test of your integrity.
And I think that's a major, major part of integrity. When you make mistakes, and we're always going to make mistakes because we're not perfect, how do you deal with that? Do you own up to it? Do you take responsibility for it? That can be really hard. But that's a huge part of integrity.
Yeah, it is.
And what are you going to do to make that situation right? How are you going to fix it?
Yeah. Because nobody enjoys saying, okay, that's not true. There are some people who are kind of emotionally masochist, or maybe, on the victim, please rescue me type side of things. But for most of us, we really don't like it to hold our hands up and go, I messed up and I'm really sorry. And this is what I'm going to do to make amends and to put it right. And so I've seen people recently and, from a little while ago, who have got the first part, I messed up, but then nothing came afterwards about, and this is how I'm going to put it right.
Right. And
that produces a lot of resentment and loses a lot of goodwill.
Yeah, and it really damages your reputation as a professional and makes you lose credibility.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're all running reputational-based businesses.
Yeah.
And whilst there is always an inherent danger that, you know, your flavour of whatever you're putting out there is not going to sit right with everybody, you may occasionally get some people that you've rubbed up the wrong way, or just for their own reasons, they're not going to like what you're doing. I see a lot more damage done by the people who have really loved somebody's work and then feel so disappointed by the way that they've handled a situation.
Yeah. It's like you build the person up to be this just ideal. You put them on a pedestal and then, you know, they fall. And
But, you know, there's this whole kind of marketing trend that there's been in recent years of the whole gurufication of, you know, I'm your savior, that kind of savior marketing. If you buy my 20-point blueprint, then I will save you from having no clients or not being able to get a guy or, you know, whatever it may be, because we're holding people up as being superhuman. And then, of course, they go and do something very human, which is mess up. And if you don't then make amends for that and put that right, then, you know, that it's almost worse as if you'd just shown up as a dick at the beginning, you know, because at least you knew they were a dick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People knew what to expect.
Yeah. Yeah. And so a recent example, I mean, this is not nice to kind of say out loud, but a recent example for me was, I know that I'm not one of life's very organized people. You know, I'm creative, I'm great in the moment. Don't get me wrong, I know what my strengths are, but I also know that being organized and being kind of on top of the detail stuff isn't a strength of mine. I have to work really hard at it. And so occasionally that I mess up with that. And a recent thing was with a program I was running. I was using a new system. I changed over to a new system to do things like send out contracts, and just hadn't understood how to use it properly. And the contracts hadn't gone out. I thought that they had, and they hadn't. And so I had to go back. I didn't have to, I suppose. But to me, I had to, as soon as I realized, I had to go back to the people involved, say, I messed up. I am so sorry. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to manually send them all out tomorrow. And I did. And, you know, please contact me if you've got any questions or queries, and we can have a chat about it. You know, if there's anything that you want to discuss in private. And then I thought, how can I stop this from happening again? And so I'm at the point now where I'm going, I need somebody to keep me organized. And so I'm in the process of interviewing and hiring somebody to help, almost like an online business manager, more somebody to kind of, I can have a meeting with each week and go, okay, these are the things that you're doing this week. She will do some of them. It's probably going to be her. I'm not just being, you know. Why are you assuming it's a woman? It's because I'm interviewing a woman for the role. And, you know, so that I have the clarity and the confidence that those things that won't naturally occur to me to do and to check up on, I've got somebody there who will be looking after that side of it. And so that will streamline, hopefully, my client experience, because it's not all just reliant on me. So there's also something about not only making amends, but then learning from it and saying, okay, so how can I minimize the risk of this happening again in the future?
Exactly. It's turning it into a learning experience and making sure that you stay in integrity and everything's under control for the next time.
Yeah.
And that goes back to what you said before, what we were talking about calibrating. As your business changes, as you change your software, new things are going to happen. You need to figure out what works. So
yeah. And it's also things like, 2 years ago, when I could count the number of clients I had on one hand, then it was no problem sending out a contract. But now, I have many more clients. I have many more people to look after. And so it does change. And you have to be aware of that.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things that come to mind when you think of integrity?
Let's see. I think we've covered a lot of it. guarantees, the whole money back guarantee thing, or guaranteeing results. But that goes back to the same, being clear about what expectations are, what you will offer, what you won't offer. Will you refund money? Won't you refund money? That's boundaries. Yeah. So I think that's more of the same.
And I don't offer a guarantee. We did a whole episode on this, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I thought we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. I think it's all about self-awareness, being really clear on what your values are, what is ethical to you, and living by that, and clearly communicating boundaries with clients, and then upholding those boundaries.
Mm. And I think one of the things that as you're talking about that, I'm thinking, do you know what? Having integrity isn't always about feeling good.
Yeah.
Because I think we have this idea that, when you're in integrity, you just feel really great. And
yeah,
no. Actually, when I'm in integrity, sometimes I get that feeling because I know I have to do something difficult to remain in integrity.
Yeah, it involves difficult conversations, which as an adult is part of being an adult.
Yeah.
But sometimes, when someone pushes your boundaries or when something is off, you need to have a conversation about it. And that's often uncomfortable.
Yeah, definitely. And you need to have a think through about things like, well, what would I do if? Or, if somebody gives me some feedback about an aspect of my work that they're not happy about, how do I respond to that? How am I able to sit with that information and be able to work out what is fair, what isn't, what is mine to own, and then own it. If it is something that's like, I could have done that better. I need to do it better next time. I need to own that. That's not always comfortable.
No, it's not.
This isn't always
it's
about,
icky.
Yeah. So I think being in integrity quite often does feel icky. It isn't just about, I just feel so aligned. It's just wonderful. It's like,
no, not necessarily.
Yeah, I feel aligned and it sucks.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think also we can learn a lot from other people's mistakes. So when things blow up on the internet and you see something happening, think what would I do in that situation? What would I do? How can I avoid that situation in my business? And use other people's mistakes as a learning experience for yourself so that you can hopefully anticipate being in that situation yourself.
Yeah, that's true. And if it's a small silver lining, if you are right now or have at some point gone through a situation where you're just like, oh my God, it feels like, my Facebook feed is on fire right now and I've messed up so bad, and how can I recover from that? Just think of all the people who are benefiting from your mistake and learning from your mistake. But seriously, at the moment, very recently, I've been watching somebody go through that kind of evisceration that can only happen on social media. And when I'm able to get some distance from it, I can look and kind of think, I can see what's gone wrong here. I can see some of the things that could have been put into place to avoid this happening. How can I put some of those things in place so it doesn't happen to me? That's really valuable learning.
Yeah, it is. And when you're going through something yourself, once you come out the other side, that's also something you can share. You can write a blog post about it. You can do a video about it. You can say, look, this happened.
Yeah.
Here's how I dealt with it. Yeah. Here's how I would deal with it in the future. And use that learning experience to help other people as well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing that I always think of whenever we're talking, Holly, is just like, so if you've not listened to our podcast very much before, if you're not familiar with our work, we are not the people who are going to be telling you it's all going to be great, it's all going to be amazing, because that wouldn't be in integrity either.
Yeah.
And so I know that sometimes one of the kind of the bits of pushback that I think I get, I don't know about you, Holly, is just that, why are you so negative about everything? Why can't if you just think positive, it'll all be fine. It's like, well, do you know what? No, I've been around long enough and I want people to be going into this with eyes open. If you want to do this work, here we do hard things, and here we do transformative things. We are not, by and large, helping people get their whites whiter than white. We are helping people to make real deep changes. We are coaches. We are healers. We are, holistic practitioners. We are consultants. We are doing deep work with people. And so that isn't just stick a bow on it, it'll be fine, you know?
It's messy sometimes.
Yes.
It's not like a clean cut thing.
Yeah. So, it also wouldn't be an integrity for us to kind of pretend that there are easy answers to this stuff, because there are.
There's no blueprint, which is why I hate fucking blueprints.
Oh, I know. Hi.
So I think we've done a pretty good job of helping people see what integrity means. What are the guideposts? What are the things that you need to be thinking about? And how you can calibrate each situation and how you're going to respond to it. So it's not being too extreme on either end. It's being a friendly professional who has clear boundaries, clear guidelines, and clear communication.
So we have now completely solved everyone's problems when it comes to integrity and how to be in integrity.
Just put a bow on it.
Yeah, exactly. Just smile and it'll all be fine. But I hope that this has helped. As usual, we would love to know your thoughts about what integrity means to you. I think sometimes the way that we find out what's in integrity for us is by noticing which behaviors from other people make us kind of go, ooh, mm-hmm. That they can all be good clues. And also notice how it feels in your body. I think there's a real somatic response when you're in integrity and when you're out of integrity. I know that's how it is for me, but we'd love to know your thoughts about it. Any last words that you want to say, Holly?
No, I think we pretty much wrapped it up. So thank you so much for exploring this with me, because it's been a topic of conversation, as you said, that we've been seeing online and people have been talking about. So I think it was really good to explore.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for listening. We'll speak to you soon.
Thank you so much for listening. Please drop me a line and let me know what you thought about this week's episode. You can email me at holly@hollywharton.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram and get in touch. I would love to give you a shout out on the show if you send me some feedback. I would also love for you to join me in my private Facebook group, Business Mindset Alchemists, so we can continue the conversation there. Like I always say, podcasting is really a one-way conversation. It's just me talking at you. And I would really like to know how you feel about this stuff that I'm talking about and what you have to say. And I would love for you to join the conversation in the Facebook group. So if you head over to hollywharton.com/group, that will redirect you to the Facebook group and you can join. I would love to see you in there. So thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a few minutes, couple minutes really, to leave a quick review on iTunes. It would really mean the world to me. I really appreciate that. And remember to visit hollywharton.com/229 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the Business Mindset Podcast. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for the topics that were discussed, at hollywharton.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and learn more about business mindset, join my private community for entrepreneurs at hollywharton.com/group. That will redirect you to the Facebook group. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave a quick review of this podcast. It just takes a minute. Thank you so much.